Hi, it's Phil McCauley here from Labour Business TV, and this morning I'm welcoming Rod Dowler. Rod's a member of Labour Business and also runs the Industry Forum. Rod, welcome. How are you, first of all, and what is your general sense of how industry is looking at the present position with coronavirus?
Oh, thanks, Phil. I must admit, I'm fine, and I'm feeling a bit pampered as I'm over 70 and kind of being looked after and feeling I'm not contributing enough. But I mean, the Industry Forum exists to promote good dialogue between business and policymakers. So we don't try and represent one view from our members, and it's a broad spectrum. I mean, our aviation related members are desperate. Our motor industry members are desperate on a number of counts, not just COVID-19 and the drop in sales, but also climate change. Some of that, we have a strong life sciences group, and they think it's a new dawn, lots of opportunities, and we're having thriving meetings with them. So
a real mixed bag at the moment. Let's just focus in on that. So aviation, you mentioned in particular, has a double whammy really. There's COVID, and then there's of course the wider Green New Deal agenda. What's the sense of that in your discussions?
Well, I think COVID has eclipsed the Green New Deal at the moment because none of the members in aviation can see business coming back for a very long time. And of course, we also represent manufacturers of aviation equipment, aeroplanes and engines, etc. And they're distraught. I mean, you've got probably half the fleet. There's probably 39,000 intercontinental planes in the world, and about half that fleet is not going to be used for probably a year. But they're still paying Airbus and Boeing on installments for the planes. So they look to be in a terrible financial position.
So does this mean we're going to see a lot of bankruptcies, foreclosures, and that kind of process going on, do you think? Is that inevitable?
Well, I don't know, because already the deal between Boeing and the Brazilian company Embraer has been called off, and the Brazilian company were more or less insolvent before that deal, so I don't know what happens with them. I mean, there's I can't remember the company in Northern Ireland that was being taken over, and Bombardier were in problems. So I suspect we'll see Airbus survive and Boeing survive in a truncated form, and Lockheed Martin, but everybody else, I don't know what's going to happen.
Do you think in searching for some sort of outcome from COVID which is positive compared to all the terrible stories we've been hearing these last 2 months, do you think Green New Deal is going to become more focused in the eyes of industry as it restructures and recovers?
Well, I mean, I think there are two prongs to that. First of all, this could be a death blow to the American shale industry. So it's going to take about 4 million barrels a day out of the market. That's going to change the dynamics. Secondly, I don't think people are going to travel as much by plane or by car. I think they're going to be more economical. I think the hot story is IT and IT infrastructure. I mean, I can't see why the government doesn't put all its money on 5G and fiber broadband at the moment, because it's proven its worth in this crisis.
So the transition to the way we all are behaving now through digital communications, you see that as being more widely adopted in general use rather than a return to the status quo?
Well, I do, don't you? I mean, all
the
people around me, all my age group, who didn't use computers much before, are all learning Zoom, FaceTiming their grandchildren. I mean, it's fantastic, and it's really good. I mean, we can't see our grandchildren, but we FaceTime them or Zoom them every other day.
So we're all baby Zoomers now then, as it were, so that's great. And as you see things now in this present moment where we're in Johnson's phase 2, as he's described it, and the terrible confusion in terms of the rules and regulations, what do you think industry can do to try and influence the government to be more coherent?
I don't know if there's anything that anyone can do, because I'm not really sure they listen. Um, I mean, I think industry will try and look after itself. And I mean, I think inevitably PPE manufacture will ramp up and testing will ramp up. And I mean, apparently there are 600 different projects to produce a vaccine going. I can't believe some of them aren't going to work. And I think some of the antivirals will work. So I think industry is doing its bit. But you need, a coherent, coordinating center in these things. And some countries have got it. And I'm not sure the UK has got it. And I'm sure the United States doesn't have it.
Now, speaking from the point of view of Labour business, what would your message be to people who'll see this video about how they should approach managing things now in terms of their business? Clearly, there's a big range of businesses, and I've been talking to different business owners about this. What's your sense of the best approach that they can take?
Well, that Labour business can take, or the businesses?
Oh, the business members, really. What would be your message to, or in particular, the small business owners out there, as well as the larger manufacturers?
I speak as somebody that worked in Deloitte in the 1970s, and I was seconded into the insolvency department after the big crash of 73, 74. And sadly, I believe there are lots of small business, lots of SMEs can't survive the loss of working capital this is going to cause. And I don't think loans help. So, I mean, basically, you've desperately got to get money into the economy and into purchasing power or supporting the small businesses. And you've got to get much more coherence for the large companies. As I've outlined, I just talked about the three large sectors.
Yes.
But I mean, there are other sectors. I mean, the food sector needs a strong steer, and farming is a major problem because we've already got the big disruption that we can't get the seasonal workers in. And we're trying to go over to more homegrown manufacture of food. But if we can't harvest the crops, what are we going to do? I mean, there needs to be a very strong and coherent push to how we do this. I don't know what the government should do. Perhaps they should put up marquees and get students sleeping in booths or tents, around the farms in Norfolk, etc. I mean, it's going to be a problem during the harvest time.
Yeah, so adaptation is the key right now, and on a very quick basis. And finally, in terms of safety, I mean, we've heard a lot from Keir Starmer questioning the Prime Minister about safety.
Yes.
There seems to be a lot of alarm and concern about the disconnect around the SAGE committee and the advice of the medical community compared to the political hacks that are on that committee. What is your sense of that? Because to me, as I see it, we seem to be getting incredible incoherence.
I think it's terrible, Phil. I mean, you've got to remember, I trained as a scientist. Now I was a physicist. I was going into nuclear physics. I am completely at one with the test. And if we did have more tests, and also, like my daughter and her whole family have had COVID-19 as far as we know, if she could take an antibody test, it would change her behavior. If I knew, I mean, I live in Crouch End. If I knew Crouch End was a hotspot, I'd be more careful about going to Waitrose than I am now, where I don't know. I mean, you've got to have more testing. And it's pointless having capacity that no one can reach. What is the point of having a testing station 100 miles away from a care home where very few of the care home workers can either drive or own a car? I mean, it's just, there's no thinking through. I mean, all strategies, all good strategies in companies have to have coherent top-down and detailed strategic local policy making. And we haven't got either. And they should work with local authorities much more.
So it's clear enough that a lot of the incoherence around the advice to Johnson is very poor strategy. And we've seen this from the beginning with Cummings and his cohort. I mean, what would your message be to those people other than to look for a new career outside of politics?
Well, that would be a good start. I mean, my message to Johnson would be, believe, take your own medicine, actually believe experts. There are hundreds of people in the civil service, in the Treasury, that could tell you how to run this properly. And if you just listen to the ideological people and direction of people like Cummings, then you won't get the right answer. And I don't think Johnson doesn't have, you know, coherence in his mind, so he's got to depend on good advisors, and I don't think he's got good advisors at the moment.
So that's the experts in a nutshell, Rod. Well, look, thank you very much for speaking to me today. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
It's a pleasure, Phil. Thanks so much.
Bye.